So you guys know I love talking about property. I got popular on this channel because I shared my experience about buying my first property here in the UK, where I regretted that decision. If you haven't watched that video, it has about 600,000 views. I'm going to link it up somewhere here so you can go and watch it. Since then, I've been doing so much research about buying property, how property prices go up, everything you need to know about property, I've been doing it. So I have a whole property playlist and I talk about property as well a lot on my Instagram and TikTok channels. So if you want to follow me on there, just check somewhere in the description. You would find the link to follow me on there. Today, I'm bringing you another property topic. So because I'm so interested in property, I went out of my way to take a whole property course and I found out about this way of buying property that nobody had ever told me about, but seems to be the best way to buy property. And also maybe the best way to sell property depending on your situation. So in this video, I'm going to dig deep into lease option agreement as a way of buying your first property. Let's get right into it. To explain, I'm going to break it into two. We've got lease and we've got option. What is a lease? A lease is when you rent a property for a fixed period. What is an option in this situation? You pay for the right, not the obligation, to buy the property at an agreed price or an agreed pricing method within that period. So let me use an example to explain this. And this is the example they used to explain to me, which made so much sense. So I am the landlord. I bought this house for £200,000. Now, it was a new build, and after 2 years, I don't want to be a landlord anymore, or the person I bought it for has moved on. Maybe your son has moved on to USA to go and work, and the property is sitting there bare. You don't want to be a landlord. So what you're thinking of is to sell it. But unfortunately, you've been trying to sell it on the market for as much as you bought it for, which is £200,000, and you haven't received any offers. The offers you are getting are lesser than £200,000, and you're not willing to take a loss. So now you're stuck in a situation where you are a landlord, but you don't want to be a landlord because you don't want to rent it out and deal with tenants and deal with breakages and all that stuff. You're being charged council tax because the property is left bare and you're trying to sell it and you can't get the offers that you want. This usually happens when you buy the property at a premium or you buy the property in a time period where there was a boom. So property prices were relatively high. And maybe now, because interest rates have gone higher, there are less buyers in the market. So you're struggling to sell this property. This is the kind of situation that works best for a lease option agreement. Now, taking it from the buyer's point of view, a buyer can approach you and say, hey, I want to buy this property at the price that you want, which is £200,000, but I don't have the deposit to do so now. And since you can't also get the price you're looking for now, let's go into an agreement where I lease the property from you for a period of time, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe 2 years. And within that period, I can come and give you the money to buy it. So from day one to the end of the 5 years that the buyer is leasing the property for, they could exercise the option to buy the property for £200,000 at any point in time. In the meantime, they will be leasing the property from you at the rental price per month that's agreed between them. So let's say this property rents for about £500 and is worth £200,000 to the seller. But on the market, the only offers he's getting is £150,000. So if he rents it for £500, he's able to pay off his costs monthly, which is probably his mortgage and maybe a service charge or a ground rent. So with the £500, he can pay off his monthly costs without having any issues owning the property. If he's going into a lease option agreement with a buyer, the buyer will then rent it from him for around the same cost that he incurs for having the property, which is probably the mortgage and the ground rent, which may equal £500 in this scenario. So every single month, the buyer will send £500 to the seller. And within 5 years, at any point in time, the buyer can come and buy the property at £200,000. How is this beneficial for the buyer? First of all, the buyer may not have the deposit. And in this case, that could be you, where you don't have your deposit, but you found the house that you want to buy and the seller is trying to sell it at a higher price that they are not getting in the market. So in this case, you go to the seller and say, I will lease this house from you at the rates that works best for you. And that would be around the rental prices. But within the 5 years, I would come in and buy it. So maybe you're saving for a deposit, but it's going to take you about 5 years. This is your way to secure the property at the price that you want to buy it for, or you just found a property that you really like. You don't really have any plan to buy it yet, but you're hoping that within 5 years you can get a promotion, you can get some money to put down as a deposit and buy it. Why would this be good for the buyer? Because they can secure the property, and because they have plans to buy it, they take care of the property. And in this case, if it so happens that the value of the property goes up to about £250,000 within the 5 years, he can still buy it for £200,000 because that was the agreed amount from the beginning of the lease option agreement. Why is this good for the seller? It's good for the seller also because they are not getting the price they're looking for in the market, and the property is costing them money, and they are not interested in being a landlord. So in this case, they get somebody who is willing to take care of the property, to live in the property with the option to buy it later. If it so happens that the person does not buy it later, because it is a right, not an obligation, they still have ownership of the property and they can sell it. Let's look at some situations or scenarios for landlords or homeowners for which this can work best. One, it could be somebody who's relocating from the UK elsewhere. So they are not living in the property, but they also don't want to be landlords, and they are not getting the price they want it for because the market is just dry. So in this case, when you do a lease option agreement, you forget about it because you're getting enough money to be paying your mortgage, and you also have someone who's taking care of the property because they're looking to buy it later. Two, another landlord can be somebody who has bought some properties in their name, and because of the taxes that are going higher for landlords, they are looking to sell it. They've been selling for a few years but haven't gotten any offers. Maybe it's not because of the price, just because there aren't any buyers in the market. This is a situation I've seen with a lot of flats here in the UK. If this is your situation, you can go into a lease option agreement with somebody who's willing to buy this property but does not have the money to put down as a deposit as at now, or maybe does not want to get into a debt of getting a mortgage now. A third situation that can be the case for a particular landlord who may be interested or may benefit from a lease option agreement is somebody who maybe bought a property for their daughter in a particular area, and their daughter or son has left that area. So now they have the property on their hands. Their daughter or son has washed their hands off of the property, and they are not interested in renting that property. So in this case, somebody going into this agreement with them because they've not been able to sell it at that point in time can be beneficial for that landlord. The fourth situation of a landlord who can find this interesting is a landlord who has a property that is now run down because previous tenants have trashed the property. They don't have enough money to do a renovation for them to rent it out to another tenant, but they found somebody who's willing to go into a lease option agreement with them, who has enough money to do the renovation. So they lease this to the buyer. The buyer does the renovation and then puts it on the market within that 5-year period. And within that period, they can get the money to buy the property from the landlord. How is it beneficial for buyers? It's quite obvious with the explanations I've given. Which buyers can this work for? Somebody who doesn't have a deposit but has found a house at a price that they are willing to buy it for in future and are working towards buying it. If they get into this arrangement with a landlord, they've secured the house and they can take care of it. A second scenario for which this can work for a buyer, that buyer has found a property that needs renovation. The seller cannot get the price they're looking for to sell it, but they can lease it, renovate it and rent it out and make the amount of money that they will be paying the seller during the lease period. And when they are ready to buy it, they will go ahead and buy it at the price that's been agreed. Why this was interesting to me was that if someone had approached me as a seller for my property because I was trying to sell it and offered a lease option agreement, I would have been happy to go into that agreement because I've been trying to sell my property for 2 years now. When I put it out for rental, it goes really fast. But when I try to sell it, I don't get any offers. So if somebody was interested in my property and said, hey, I don't have the down payment for this yet, but can I go into a lease option agreement with you and pay you the price you want, which was just the price I bought it for, In 5 years' time, I would have probably gone in for this agreement because I just wanted to wash my hands off of renting it and having to think about maintaining tenants and having tenancy issues. And also renting it to somebody who keep it as their own because they are interested in buying it later. Now, if this sounds interesting to you and you are a seller who has been stuck in a similar situation, I'm going to try and find a way to help you out. Send me an email to this email address I'm going to put on the screen, and I can work through some of the options that you have in maybe getting into a lease option agreement. And if you agree, I will come and market your property on this channel for buyers who are willing to go into a lease option agreement with you to see it, and hopefully you can get yourself sorted in this situation. If you are also a buyer and you think a lease option agreement may be something that could interest you, just let me know by sending me an email. And when I find any property that is in the area that you're looking at and fits your situation, I will send you an email and work things with you. The last thing I want to mention here is that lease option agreements are usually drafted by solicitors. So majority of the time, the buyer will have a solicitor and the seller will have a solicitor. I'm sure there are so many questions that would come up after people see this video. So if you have any questions about lease option agreements, please put in the comments. Whether you're thinking about the mortgage, whether you're thinking about the bank agree that you put your property in a lease option agreement, whether you're thinking about what if the buyer does not pay the rent, what happens? Any questions that you have, just put in the comments, and this could be beneficial for someone. If you do know somebody who is a seller of a property and struggling to sell it, and you think that this agreement could be something that could help them, send this video to them and let them reach out to me. I just want to find solutions for people who are in a similar situation to myself, and hopefully we can help each other out. If you found this video helpful, share with others and follow this channel for more. It's been Abigail.